Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's digital event supporting the pharmacy technician workforce across the globe. I'm happy to turn things over to your moderator, Kathy Schuster.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Kathy Schuster, and I will be your moderator for this FIP webinar, supporting the pharmacy technician workforce across the globe. I am a licensed pharmacy technician in Canada, and I have many years of practicing in community and hospital pharmacy settings, as well as coordinator and professor of a pharmacy technician program. Over the years, I have served on a number of pharmacy committees and boards. In 2015, I was the first pharmacy technician in Canada elected as president of the Pharmacy Examining Board of Canada. I am currently the coordinator of Pharmacy Technician Programs Accreditation for the Canadian Council of Accreditation for Pharmacy Programs, notably CCAP, and I have 38 college programs in my portfolio. I joined the FIP Pharmacy Technician Symposium team in 2015, and I am a member of the Pharmacy Technician Advisory Committee. Next slide, please, Ryan. I have a few announcements for today's webinar. This webinar is being recorded and live streamed via YouTube. The recording will be available on our website at www.events.fip.org. You may ask questions using the question box provided, and you are welcome to provide feedback at webinars@fip.org. And we really welcome you to become a, a member of FIP at www.fip.org/membership_registration. Today's program includes an introduction. We have a Pharmacy Technician Advisory Committee overview and update. We are talking about the regulatory roles of technicians and advocacy of the future. And we're also speaking about Singapore's pharmacy technicians community of practice. The learning objectives for today include identifying ways that professional and regulatory bodies support pharmacy technician workforce, recognize the role of advocacy in supporting the pharmacy technician workforce, and we're going to describe recent projects of the Pharmacy Technician Advisory Committee. I'm really pleased to welcome our first speaker, Ryan Burke. Ryan is the Director of Professional Affairs at the Pharmacy Technician Certification Board, PTCB, where he serves as a liaison to state and national pharmacy associations, state boards of pharmacy, and pharmacy technician organizations. He closely follows state legislative and regulatory changes that may impact pharmacy technician practice and monitors trends related to pharmacy technician education, training, and certification requirements. Before joining PTCB in August 2018, Ryan worked at the American Pharmacists Association in practice and professional affairs and governance roles. He also has experience working as a PTCB certified pharmacy technician at Walgreens. Ryan earned his PharmD degree in the University of Louisiana at Monroe College of Pharmacy and completed a postgraduate executive residency program in association management and leadership with the American Pharmacy Association Foundation. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm happy to be here with all of you to provide just a brief update about some of the work that the Pharmacy Technician Advisory Committee has been doing and hopefully spark your interest in getting involved. So the advisory committee was established in 2019 as part of the Pharmacy Technician and Support Workforce strategic platform within the organization. And we're very pleased that we have over 15 countries represented currently. And certainly there's an opportunity for those of you who might be interested in providing guidance and advice for the global development of the technician and support workforce to join our efforts. And in addition to actually becoming a member of the advisory committee, there are also several opportunities to participate and engage of the work of the group through the multiple working groups that I'll speak about in just a moment. I do want to point out that we do have a website, fip.org/support workforce. And so if you're interested in learning a bit more about this committee and ways to get involved, I would encourage you to visit the website at your convenience. So the first work group is the one that you are sort of seeing one of the results of today. So the Events and Symposia work group is charged with leading the organization and planning of the annual Pharmacy Technician Symposium, which always takes place in October. And then also develop 2 to 4 webinars annually. So this event that you're participating in today is our first of 2023. We have another event scheduled for July 5th, and then the Pharmacy Technician Symposium, which will be held virtually again this year, is scheduled for October 17th and 18th. Second, we have the Evidence and Resources Working Group. This group is charged with establishing a plan and overseeing the development of publications or reports that are consistent with the advisory committee's priorities. And so there are a couple of projects in progress today. Those include developing a global glossary for the pharmaceutical workforce, as well as a competency framework for the pharmacy support workforce throughout the world. Third, we have the Engagement and Advocacy Working Group. So this group is charged with keeping that website that I mentioned to you earlier up to date and making sure that the content is relevant to anyone who may want to learn more about our work. This group is also charged with creating a stakeholder database of pharmacy support workforce associations or professional bodies in all the countries throughout the world, as well as developing commentaries or thought pieces that help describe the pharmacy technician support workforce with the goal of getting those commentaries published. And then finally, there is the Governance and Strategy Working Group. So this is the group that helps set the strategic priorities for the Pharmacy Technician Advisory Committee. This is also the group that liaises with other aspects of the FIP organization, and then also collaborating on the activity of other Workforce Hub and FIP sections, especially as they relate to the FIP development goals, which of course include topics that are related to the support workforce. So I hope that gives you a sense of what the advisory committee is focused on and the ways that you might be able to get engaged. So at this point, I'm happy to turn things back over to Kathy to kick off our presentations for the day.
Thank you, Ryan. Sorry, a little technical glitch there. I am so pleased to welcome a fellow Canadian and colleague, Dana Lyons. Dana is a regulated pharmacy technician in Alberta, Canada, a certified Lean Six Sigma Black Belt and PROCI, I hope I pronounced that properly, change management professional. Dana is employed with Alberta Health Services on the provincial operations team as a technical practice manager. Dana's work includes leading large-scale projects focused on standardization in process across the systems that has 119 hospital sites. Dana's focus is facilitating and leading successful change in pharmacy practice through multidisciplinary pharmacy teams using lean and change management methods to support this work. Dana has extensive experience in the implementation of compounding and practice standards. Dana has dedicated much of her career to improving compounding processes, practices, and mentoring others to successfully achieve quality process in their pharmacy environment. Dana is a current council board member of the Alberta College of Pharmacy and and has served as president of the ACP in 2021. Dana will tell us more about herself and her experiences. Please welcome Dana.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present here at this FIP digital event for pharmacy technicians across the globe. I am here to share a few things with you about advocacy in Alberta, Canada, but also regulatory opportunities and my personal experience working with the regulatory body here in Alberta. Little bit about me. I am a pharmacy technician. I have been for a number of years. I graduated from a pharmacy technician college back in 1995. My career has always been in hospital pharmacy. Our health system here in Alberta encompasses about 120 hospital sites. It services the entire province. We all fall under one umbrella. My role within that organization is a provincial role. I oversee the standards of practice that impact every single one of our pharmacies, our pharmacy technicians, our unregulated staff, and any of the dispensing activities. And so that's my role. It's a provincial role. I have staff that work across the province that also support me in this work. As I said, my practice has largely been hospital. I do a lot of volunteering. Some of that is regulatory work, which I'll go on to in a second here. I've also been involved in other advocacy organizations, including PTSA and other advocacy organizations in Canada over the last decades, actually, since I've been a pharmacy technician, I've been involved. So that's a little bit about my daytime and my professional history. My personal life, I have 2 children, 16 and 18, so they're on their way to becoming contributing adults. I have a loving husband, and of course we have a small fur baby, a little 2-pound Yorkie. In my spare time, I run a nonprofit organization that serves unsheltered women here in Calgary. So that's a little bit about me. So let's leap into it. Let's talk about advocacy in Alberta, Canada specifically. Our pharmacy technician advocacy organization in Alberta is an extremely active organization and has been for many, many, many years. There's 3 core areas of focus for the Pharmacy Technician Society of Alberta, or PTSA for short. And that is really their 4 advocacy pillars are they advocate for the pharmacy technician profession. They educate the public, members, and affiliates on the pharmacy technician scope of practice, and they provide continuing education or professional development and networking opportunities. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of the highlights under each one of those core pillars. So the first one is advocacy. So the current efforts in Alberta are all around administering injections. So pharmacy technicians in Alberta can currently not administer any kind of injection to patients. However, the advocacy organization is working on this. I understand they are working on a white paper so that they can go back to the regulatory body and have further discussions with them. So they're very active in this arena. We know that there are other pharmacy technician organizations and regulatory bodies in Canada that are allowing administration of injections, including even in other countries. So we know this to be successful, so something that they're working on here in Alberta. The second thing that they're working on in regards to advocacy efforts is around workforce challenges. We know since the pandemic, the workforce has been experiencing all kinds of burnout and challenges in terms of having enough staff to do the work. So our advocacy organization is very involved in this, and they have identified a number of key issues affecting the pharmacy workforce, and they have a lot of advocacy in that arena. The third area for advocacy efforts that they're working on is informing regulatory practice standards. Over the last couple of years, there's been a number of regulatory standards that have come out through a consultation process, and the advocacy organization spends a lot of detailed time ensuring that feedback is offered to those practice standards so they can help inform what the practice looks like here in Alberta. This is a key piece of work that they do. And then lastly, they provide feedback on the National Prescription Drug List. In terms of professional development or continuing education, Pharmacy Technician Society of Alberta, or PTSA, has a long history of providing absolute quality pharmacy technician learning activities. I have to say the annual conference, which is the top bullet there, is a delight for pharmacy technicians across this country. People come from across the country to attend this annual conference. Now, why is that? Primarily, the sessions are pharmacy technician led. They are not sessions that are delivered by pharmacists for technicians. They are delivered by technicians for technicians. And PTSA has been doing this for a number of years. The benefit here is it really helps develop pharmacy technicians in terms of being a self-regulated profession, educating each other, sharing experiences. It's super important. They do this very well. The other thing that they're really working on is compounding standards and education around that. There's been a lot of shifts in Canada over the last number of years, and the standards have been increased. And so there's a lot of education that needs to come with that. PTSA has taken that under their wing. You can see they spend some time here in that third bullet around medication safety. We know that as distribution experts, there's a lot of work around medication safety, and our role in medication quality and safety is a key role ensuring patient safety. And so PTSA has done a number of educational sessions in this arena. The other three that are listed there, cultural safety and gender of care of diverse people and leadership development, are also key activities that PTSA is currently involved in. So they are developing CEUs and continuing education around these areas so that pharmacy technicians can stay on top of the things that are changing in pharmacy practice. I want to spend a little bit of attention, put a little bit of attention on the leadership development. PTSA, through their annual conference, but also through other engagements, have actually always dedicated a fair bit of development around leadership. This is really key because pharmacy technicians don't spend as much time in school as pharmacists do. For sure in Alberta, that is the case, and in Canada, in pharmacy school and getting that pharmacy education. And pharmacists are afforded a lot of leadership development opportunities as they work themselves through the program. And by the nature of the shorter programs for pharmacy technicians, we don't often see that they come with a lot of well-rounded leadership development. And so PTSA has seen this as a gap. They're providing some work in this area and some CEs and some continuing education. And it is absolutely making a difference in the pharmacy technicians as they develop this within themselves. And the third pillar for PTSA is a main one as well, and it's education on the role of pharmacy technicians. So since regulation here in Alberta, which was 2011, pharmacy technicians needed to really start to articulate and really understand and describe to others their role and scope. So PTSA started internally with pharmacy technicians. In addition to that, they've also been spending the last number of years sharing that information with those outside of the pharmacy technician purview. And what is the role and scope of pharmacy technicians, and who is filling your prescriptions that you might not know about, and what are their qualifications, and what is their scope of practice, and what can you expect from them? So PTSA has been doing a lot of work in this arena. The second bullet there, highlight unique roles and success stories. This is really key in the pharmacy technician world because what it does is it opens up the minds and the curiosity of other folks out there and employers on how they may better utilize pharmacy technicians in their workflows. And so that has always been really a successful session when they hold this around the role of pharmacy technicians. And the third one there is clarify appropriate roles for non-regulated support personnel. This one has come with a little bit of tension in some ways, largely because the standards of practice in Alberta are not as clear around the role of non-regulated personnel in our pharmacies. And so pharmacy technicians were getting a little bit they're a little bit unsure at times on what the role of a regulated person is, and what is their role, and what is their role to have oversight over. And so PTSA has been spending a lot of time working through that, and I think it has been super supportive for pharmacy technicians to have this resource. So that is the role of our advocacy in Alberta. You can see there is a number of buckets that they're involved in, really key projects. I know that they engage across the country with other, not regulatory, but other advocacy organizations so that we keep connected in Alberta with what's going on outside of the Alberta borders, but into the rest of our country. So I'm going to shift gears here to the regulatory opportunities for pharmacy technicians and describe a little bit of my experience within the Alberta College of Pharmacy. So regulatory roles are available to qualified practicing professionals and technicians. There is a lot of different ways that you can get involved as a pharmacy technician with the regulatory bodies. And so you can sit on hearing tribunal committees, you can sit on competence committees. They often have feedback sessions that they might be looking for. Like those are certainly ways that any pharmacy technician can get involved and can contact their regulatory body and say, is there some openings? Are you looking for some people? Because I'm interested. There's some other more formal ways that you can get involved with the regulatory bodies in Alberta, and that is through positions on council or the board. And so that's where my experience lies, and so I'll talk a little bit about that. What I want to leap into is what qualifications should technicians consider? So these are things that you can consider in advance of moving ahead with regulatory positions. So, and this is just my own reflections, things that I've learned along the way that were helpful for me, and also points where I tripped up. So openness to learn and grow. The regulatory world is vast, it's broad, there's a lot of interdependencies, there is a lot of government oversight and considerations that need to be considered. So that openness to learn and grow, I mean, the learning curve is steep. There's no question about it. It's super steep. But if regulatory standards and those kinds of things really excite you, that openness to learn and grow comes easier. But I always like to let people know there's an awful lot of work that comes with working with regulatory bodies. My other bullet there is demonstrated leadership. So if you are currently working in a role and you haven't put yourself out there for informal or formal leadership roles, it's a good idea to consider that, as it's really going to help you in the regulatory world. If you have some demonstrated leadership behind you, it'll help you kind of understand how you might be able to contribute. It'll help with your learning and growth and your openness and all those kinds of things. And so, if you haven't been part of an advocacy organization and you're leaping straight to regulatory work, perhaps you have other leadership skills behind you, but those are things that you really want to consider. The third bullet there is regulatory knowledge. And so before you leap into a regulatory role, you really ought to consider what are the regulations in your area that guide your practice and that govern pharmacy in your area. As you have a look at those, that will give you an understanding. I mean, we should know them anyways to begin with, but you will know them in a much deeper level when you're in a regulatory role, in a governance role. But when you look at those and you start to look at them and understand them differently from a regulatory perspective, from a regulator perspective, if that interests you, those kinds of documents interest you, then you're a good fit for a regulatory role. If you're unsure, it's good to go and have a look at those, because you'll want to understand the ins and outs of all regulatory fence posts for the pharmacy profession in your area and what that looks like, so you can adequately contribute. And then the real key qualification that I often advise folks to really consider is when you are at the regulatory table, your interest is in serving the public. It is not a self-interest and it is not an advocacy interest. It is all about protection of the public. And so to be super mindful that that is what the role is about, and that is the key difference between regulatory work and advocacy work. Both super important, but they're very different. So I'm going to share a little bit about my experience being on the regulatory board for the last 6 years. Firstly, it can be absolutely hard to be heard in a new arena. As a pharmacy technician, I was in a room with mostly pharmacists, very experienced. They have worked at high-level leadership, worked in high-level leadership arenas for a long time. And this was very new to me because pharmacy technicians are not often in those higher level leadership positions because our profession is so new. And it can be difficult to be heard. There's no question. That is on me. And that is a skill that I needed to develop in order to speak up, contribute in a meaningful way, and find ways that my voice could be heard at that table. So I had to do a lot of learning in that area. The other one is preparation is necessary for success. Before every council meeting, we often had about 8 to 10 days a year, 8 to 10 full days a year of council activities. And preparation is necessary for success. It's upwards to 1,000+ pages of reading. And it's not just reading it, it's like figuring out what are the questions you have within the documents you've been provided. How might you contribute? Do you have any concerns? Is there anything that you want to bring forward to better round out the material and also help you inform yourself so that you can make a decision, be prepared to make a decision at the table? That work looks different than how it works in our frontline positions or in my position even as a leader within my organization. It is a different way of working and understanding the work and contributing to the work. And so that was a steep learning curve for me, but my takeaway was the more I prepared, the better I was able to contribute. The third bullet there is say yes to working groups, build skills and knowledge. So what do I mean by this? On council, my very first year was the hardest year of all. And within that year, I knew I needed to build even more skill than I was able to do before I joined council. And so I found the way for me to be successful there was to volunteer for various council working groups. So there are some times where council has to review hearing tribunal decisions because they're getting challenged, or there's sometimes you'll be on a nominating committee or a policy review committee. And I found that by joining those committees, I was able to continue to learn at a faster rate and understand the system a little bit more and able to piece it together because, like I said, I hadn't been exposed to this before. And I do find that other pharmacy technicians that have also joined council are in the same boat. And so as you work on these working groups, you build an exponential amount of knowledge, and it really helps you contribute in a meaningful way when you're at the board table. So a couple other of my lessons learned and just some experiences that I had on council is to stay open and have a curious mindset. There are a lot of things that come to regulatory body organizations and in pharmacy in particular. And the issue is not often the surface issue you read, it is a much different issue. You think about how technology has changed the way the world works. Well, it has changed the way pharmacy works as well. And so it's to put good governance in place and good policy in place to support safe practice for, of course, the patient. You have to absolutely have an open mind and be really curious about where this work could go and what policy could look like. My other key point, and I've said this a couple times throughout the presentation, is that it is not about the profession. It is absolutely only about protection of the public. While there is consideration for the professions in terms of how they might action something and what standards and guidelines do they need to be successful, what are their fence posts, it is not about advocacy for the profession. And in fact, in Alberta, there is a very clear line that the government has put out there, and that is advocacy and regulatory bodies must be separate and distinct, and they must not have crossover. That doesn't mean they don't have conversation about some key issues, but really, in general, their work is quite separate, albeit complementary. Some of my personal experiences and highlights, like I said, I'm on council for 6 years. I'm finishing up my 6th year this year. I'll be done in June. In 2021, I was the president of the organization, the very first pharmacy technician to be president of a pharmacy regulatory body in Canada. It also was the year of COVID and complete lockdown in Alberta that entire year. My entire president term was in lockdown. And so there were some disadvantages to that. There was no meetings in person. I wasn't able to build the same kind of relationships that you can build when you're in person with someone over and over. The council meetings that I led were through digital means. However, the leadership skills that I learned through that, leading those executives and the council through the really tough year of COVID during lockdown, through the initial days of the COVID vaccine coming to market, and also all online, was an experience of a lifetime that I learned skills from that I will take with me forever. there was just an awful lot of joy in the learning. There was a lot of support from the pharmacist and the pharmacy technician profession to have me lead the organization. And I absolutely encourage folks, if they're interested in that work, to get involved. It has been a highlight of my career, and it'll be something that I take with me for forever. So with that said, I am happy to answer any questions that folks might have.
Thank you so much, Dana. What an interesting life you have, and how exciting it is for you to be able to speak on both advocacy and the regulatory body. This is a wonderful experience. Questions we're going to take a little bit after Abigail's session. And so we'll, if you want to put your questions into the Q&A box, we will certainly answer them when we're completed the presentations. I'd like to introduce to you to right now, Abigail Tan. She's a pharmacy technician from Singapore and a member of FIP's Pharmacy Technicians Advisory Committee. She has been working as a pharmacy technician since 2013 at KK Women's and Children's Hospital. She is currently in charge of staff training and the planning of continuing education topics. An advocate for pharmacy technicians, Abigail is part of several national initiatives and work groups to better understand the needs of pharmacy technicians with regard to progression and training. And she hopes to continue developing her leadership and mentorship skills. I am pleased to welcome Abigail. There you go, Abigail.
Thank you, Katie. It's an amazing introduction. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to share about Singapore's Pharmacy Technicians Community of Practice and why we had this idea to do this and where we are going to move forward from here and what we've achieved so far. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about me. I'm going to talk about the background of the Committee of Practice, which is a COP, and you can see from the top left-hand corner, that's our icon. It's something that one of our members created, and it's really good. I'll talk about our purpose, the stakeholders, the timeline, and how we came about this, and all of that, and our accomplishments and what we hope moving forward. Next, please. So a little bit about me. As Kathy has said, I'm a pharmacy technician for almost 10 years now. I train and oriented the new staff. I'm a representative in some of the national initiatives in Singapore. I'm also a representative in FIP's PTAC. So I am part of the engagement and advocacy team. So we are doing up the website. So Ryan has talked about that earlier. I helped set up the Pharmacy Technicians Community of Practice, and we're now running it with the help of a lot of support from the Pharmaceutical Society of Singapore, from the ministry, just so much support. I started a pharmacy technicians work group at my workplace. This is to aid dissemination of information to my peers. There was a problem because there's so many of us, and not everyone gets information that's from ministry, and not everyone is aware of the initiatives that's for the PharmTechs. So there were a lot of misconceptions going around, or like, is progression really here, and what can they do, and things like that. So we do hope that with such initiatives, with the community of practice, with the work group, that we'll be able to include more PharmTechs to have them in the know about what's new and what's going on. Yeah, next please. Thank you. So this is a little bit of the background. So in 2019, we started the Chief Pharmacist Pharmacy Technicians Leaders Group. This is with the ministry, and this is with representatives of pharmacy technicians across the island from various institutions. Discussion of issues concerning pharmacy technicians. So things like, what is the purpose of this platform? What are the challenges that we're faced due to high attrition rates? The National Pharmacy Strategy Initiative, Pharmacy Technicians Entry to Practice, as well as doing a SWOT analysis on the evolving roles of pharmacy technicians. And most recently, we discussed on the entry to practice on-the-job training for graduates from one of our part-time courses. And this is a way to help pump in more pharmacy technicians into the workforce. In July of 2021, we discussed the potential of a potential setup of a committee of practice together with the Pharmaceutical Society of Singapore. And I'll talk later about what the purpose of this is. Next, please. Thank you. So the purpose of forming the COP is to bring together a group of pharmacy technicians who share same interests, who want to fulfill both group and individual and group goals, to learn, share best practices, and to promote recognition for pharmacy technicians. So basically, it's like setting up a society, right? There were a few limitations with regards to setting up a society, and this was one of the best options that we had to even step in to the arena of advocating for pharmacy technicians. Some of the aims of the COP is to identify learning needs. So while the schools have come to consensus of what they are going to teach the students and how the graduates are going to be like, there are still some learning needs that we have identified that we could do more. We could have webinars, or we could have short courses for the pharmacy technicians to take part in, so that they can continuously upgrade themselves. It could be within their own institution. It could be a national thing. This is something that we're working out. We like to create more learning opportunities and to develop necessary materials for them, offline or online. For example, soft skills, continuing education sessions, mentorship programs. We have also identified certain things that we'd like to share, such as best practices among pharmacy technicians. What is the best way to stock up, our inventory? What's the best way to avoid look-alike, sound-alike medications, picking errors, and things like that? We also like to engage and garner recognition for pharmacy technician practice. We've gotten to a point where we have identified and recognized the importance of pharmacy support workforce and what we do. And everything just comes together like clockwork. Pharmacist is there for like the clinical stuff, and we are here for operational, and even though some of us are doing clinical as well. So how are we going to work together to provide the best experience for the patients, right? And at the same time promote our professional growth. Next, please. So these are some of the stakeholders, most importantly, our pharmacy technicians. From them, we'd like to garner feedback about concerns, contribute to solutioning of common issues faced. What are some of the problems that they face? What are some of the things that are important to them? What are some of the push and pull factors that's keeping them or leaving, pushing them out of the job? And like to have them to participate in organized activities. So we did host a Pharmacy Technicians Day virtual celebration last year, and I'll talk about that later. Our second stakeholder is the Pharmaceutical Society of Singapore, and they have provided amazing guidance from the start. They have told us about what are our aims, what can we do, how do we go about creating a space like that, and thinking about what our aims and goals are for the next 3, 5, 10 years. So they have provided us with amazing support. They have also offered us resources such as e-learning platforms, ways to connect the COP to other chapters, as well as social media platforms, so that we can get the word out. Lastly, we have the National Pharmacy Leadership Meeting platforms. These are groups with the chief pharmacists. So we have the very first one, which is the Pharmacy Technicians Leaders Group with chief pharmacists. We have the Pharmacy Managers Group. And lastly, you have the Training and Development Committee. They are the ones who come together and talk about these are what we need pharmacy technicians to graduate with. These are the guidelines, these are the threshold. And they are the ones who talk to training institutions, schools, on how they would like the curriculum to be. So yeah. So we are hoping that through the Training Development Committee, we could come out with a training guide, a training platform, something to help bridge some of the gaps that we have identified. Next, please. This is the timeline. So it started around July of 2021. We were talking about creating a community of practice with the Pharmaceutical Society. We talked about why it's important and how we can use this platform to advocate for the pharmacy technicians. So for about 5 to 6 months, There's lots of back and forth about what we want to do and the terms of reference and how we would like to identify ourselves and the eventual goal of the COP. We had our very first COP meeting on the 10th of December. This was after nominating the core committee. And with that, we formed subgroups. So we have two subgroups. We have the upscaling and training subgroup. So that's the one who is there to identify training gaps, as well as the engagement and outreach team. In December of 2021, we drafted and firmed up the terms of reference for the Pharmacy Technicians Committee of Practice. And from there on, it was meetings, coming together, and really thinking about what we want to do with this platform that we have. With that time, we decided that we should launch a Telegram channel to reach out to the younger crowd, as well as plan the first Pharmacy Technicians Day virtual celebration. So we had games, we had webinars, we had pharmacy technician speakers coming in. We had talks on automation, and we had talks on inventory and how COVID affected it. Yeah. Next, please. So this is what we've accomplished as of 25th of January this year. We have 244 subscribers. We might have a little bit more now. We aim to have more. And how do we plan to achieve that? There are approximately 1,400, 1,500 pharmacy technicians in Singapore. This is just within the public sector. We plan to achieve this by continuous sharing and advocacy among our peers and pharmacy technician leaders. We have e-posters posted on emails. We have our groups that can help share among their institutions. We are hosting once again for this year's Pharmacy Technicians Day, and we're aiming for 200 participants this year. So we had 118 tuning in at peak last year. So yeah. We're looking at things like sponsorships and all sorts of prizes and games, talks and sharing sessions for that day. So it's really exciting. Yeah, thank you. Next, please. Moving forward, I think we've identified that we'd like to start a students chapter once we are a little bit firmed up. You know, I think this is really important because there is a discrepancy with regards to what the students expect and what the reality of the situation is. So a lot of them, or a good handful of them, have come into the workforce just really not expecting what they thought it would be. It's really funny. They come in and they're shocked. And one of two things happen. Either they grit their teeth and they're like, okay, let me do this and let me learn and give me exposure and give me chance and give me opportunities, and they stay. And you have the other group who's like, no. So we want to reduce a mismatch of expectations of the workforce with the students. With this, we can start a mentorship program as well, and it would be really great for them to be able to talk to pharmacy technicians who are already in the industry for many years, who are doing many things. You know, it's not just picking and packing. We have so many initiatives here. There's so many things for us to do. It will take time, and I hope that they understand that. We'd like to increase the number of graduates within pharmacy and to reduce attrition as well. Okay. Moving forward, I'd like to continue to host the annual Pharmacy Technicians Day celebration. It's virtual again this year. I really do hope that we'll be able to do a physical one in the future. We'd like to use this space and platform to showcase initiatives and projects done by pharmacy technicians. And it's really important to show this because it shows that we can do this. You know, there are people out there doing this, and we're not bounded and we're not limited by anything. I'd like to use this platform to promote recognition of pharmacy technicians as well as to identify knowledge gaps, bridge them through various means. Out of this, we'd like to groom leaders among pharmacy technicians to develop a more confident pharmacy technician profession, to enable professional growth and career progression among pharmacy technicians, and to show them that it doesn't stop anywhere. You don't have to feel stagnated in this profession. There are ways to grow. Yeah, next please. So this is what it looks like for us, right? We have a patch of grass, and it's clean, and it's green, and nobody knows where to go. Nobody knows to walk left or walk right, and we like to use the committee of practice to pave the way for future pharmacy technicians. We like to start, to start having a direction. And when more people start walking, you start to see the second picture where there's, like a hiking path. There is a path. There are many paths, in fact. And we hope that this journey will enrich us all. Thank you. Next, please. This is our Telegram QR code if you'd like to join us. We post content, I think it's once a month, and we have quizzes. We post updates from the ministry's initiatives and things like that, as well as updates on activities from the COP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abigail. That's very informative, and what a lot of work you've put into developing this group. It's so important to have that advocacy for other pharmacy technicians within your country, and certainly the promotion of the profession. So thank you again. We have some questions. This one question's for Dana. Is the advocacy for injections focused on immunizations or a broad coverage including injectable medications?
Thanks for the question, Kathy. It's Dana here. I don't think my camera's working for some reason all of a sudden, but we're going to go with it. So is advocacy focused on injections? Is vaccine injections is where they're limiting their efforts at this time. Could you hear me, Kathy?
Yeah, okay. I can hear you. Yeah, that's fine. I might speak about some of the other provinces in Canada where we do have that. We do have that certificate as pharmacy technicians to provide immunizations, and it can be for it started with COVID vaccinations, and now they've moved to the flu vaccine as well. So we're moving forward slowly, but moving forward. The next question for you again, Dana, is the advocacy is pursued for injections. What components for education or credentials are being offered to meet the definition qualified?
That's a great question. Kathy, you might actually have a bit more information on that with other provinces where technicians can do vaccine injection. Mm-hmm. In Alberta, because that work is really early days still, that work hasn't been done here.
And I can certainly answer for Ontario. What we've done, our pharmacy technicians have to be certified, and that's done through an I can't say the word, advocacy group that the Ontario Ontario Pharmacists Association. So they provide the training and the assessment for pharmacy technicians, and then the certificate for qualification. I hope that answers that question, Christine. The next question I have is for Abigail, and who was your greatest support? Which group of stakeholders and were you supported financially to start this incentive?
No, we were not. There's no money involved yet. Everything that so things like Zoom accounts and meeting venues, and we have really gracious bosses who have allowed us to use institutions space for that, and we are doing it after office hours, so we're not really disturbing anyone. The Pharmaceutical Society of Singapore has given us great support in terms of these startups. So there were lots of meetings on, really trying to define what we want to do, define what is the committee of practice, what do we want to do about this, what are we going to do about that, and how are we going to find solutions to all of this, and what's our plan. So there's just lots of definitions on all of that. And I think we did like a 5-year timeline and what we intend to do. And yeah, so in terms of support, it was there. PSS has given us, they've offered to allow us to use e-learning platforms as well, and they have given us their social media platform to share, for example, Pharmacy Technicians Day banners, activity banners, and just to get the word out. And this was even before we had the Telegram channel. Right now they're still doing that for us, which we're really grateful for. And yeah, I would say mainly this too. We have support from the Pharmacy Technician Leaders Group as well. They were there at the beginning of the discussion on why we think we need a community of practice. So we used our discussions from the PharmTech Leads group to okay, so these are the issues that we've identified, right, for the past 2 years. These are some of the solutions that we might have, but how can the community of practice come in and roll it out, in a much smoother fashion? Because the leaders group with ministry, it's because we are tied with the Ministry of Health. There are certain limitations and bureaucracy and things like that for us to be aware of. So we were thinking, okay, so certain things the committee of practice could help, to iron out or to talk about the issues or to find solutions to it. And yeah, so everyone has been a really, really great help.
Great, thank you. Back to a vaccination question from Shahar. The vaccination administration by registered pharmacy technicians, are there any updates? My recommendation would be that you go on to the different provincial, if you're looking in Canada, the provincial regulatory bodies and to see what their updates are. In Ontario, it's still in a situation where there is a stop time for regulated pharmacy technicians to provide injections, but I'm not quite sure what's happening in the other provinces. So I would suggest going to the regulatory body websites. To become a pharmacy technician for an international student, apart from Canada, what are the prerequisites in Canada, especially Singapore? Maybe you can answer that one, Abigail.
I'm sorry, Kathy, could you repeat the question? Was it the one on international student?
Yeah, to become a pharmacy technician for an international student, apart from Canada, what are the prerequisites in Canada or Singapore? So maybe you could answer for the Singapore part.
Okay, so if you have a pharmacy degree from another country out of Singapore, and if it's not recognized by our Singapore Pharmacy Council, I think you're almost automatically a pharmacy technician. If you have just a pharmacy technician prerequisite, I've never had that. I don't had anyone applied with just a PharmTech college degree or something like that. I think that's really hard because in Singapore it would require us to have either a diploma. One of the certification courses by the Pharmaceutical Society of Singapore, and that takes a year. And recently it's the part-time diploma for pharmaceutical sciences. On top of that, there has to be if I'm not wrong, a 6-month OJT to be qualified as a PharmTech after that. So I am really unaware if there are foreign qualifications that could bring people in as PharmTechs. If you're already a PharmTech in your country, I'm not sure how that would work, frankly, because I've never seen that before. I could find out, but I've never seen that before. It's usually people with a pharmacy degree and they're pharmacists in their home country, and it's not recognized in Singapore, and then they get hired as a pharmacy technician.
Great, thank you. And I know in Canada, you would have to take an accredited program, a pharmacy technician program, as an international student to go through the process of registration, as well as doing your Pharmacy Examining Board of Canada exams, and then register with a provincial regulatory body. This question from Abraham is, how can we as pharmacists support the growth and recognition of our pharmacy technicians? Because it seems in every region, just like pharmacists, the recognition is evolving based on so many issues. For example, the culture of healthcare delivery, training, and societal acceptance. I don't know, Dana, do you want to try that?
Sure, I'll give that one a go. So I think there's a couple key things. The first one is bring them along with you. So a lot of times pharmacists are invited to be part of, I'll call it the initiative, the piece of work that's in front of you, whatever that is, wherever you work and whatever that looks like for your organization. And what I would say is bring along your pharmacy technician. They know the dispensing activities, they know the ins and outs of your pharmacies, what may or may not work, and they can absolutely augment the work that you're doing. So that is one way to support their growth. And then the next time, send them on their own. And so those that you can kind of build up those steps in their own growth and development and leadership so that they can start to take that work on their own. In terms of recognition, I think that what I just said there meets both purposes. It recognizes that you see the value and the skill that they bring to your team, but also you're invested in their growth and their development.
Abigail, do you have anything to add to that?
I agree with what Dana says. I think it's a lot about confidence and how a lot of the pharmacy technicians feel like we need a pharmacist supervision, like, oh, is the pharmacist doing it? Can we do it? And when I do things like go for FIPS conference in Seville and things like that, and it's just never been heard of. And I would really like to do more of these things to show them that we could do more. I think it's really a matter of finding opportunities and then wanting to do it. And at the same time, having really supportive people at work and supportive bosses who would really push for it at the same time. So yeah, I think that's it. But I think PharmTechs really have to just really dare to stand on our own and say, okay, I'm going to do this. I can do this. I'm trained to do this, and I know this, and I can do it. And it's really like, when we how we first started out dispensing, right? It's like, can I really counsel this? And you start learning, and it's like, oh, okay, and then we build up, on the list of medications that we can dispense. And I think this is just how it's going to be with leadership roles as well. It can't be, I'm a pharm tech, I can't be a leader, I can lead. No, everyone can lead if you want to. Yeah.
Great, thank you. The next question is, for those of us not in Canada, what is required to meet the professional status of regulated? And I think maybe Abigail, you might want to take that one on. I'll speak about some of the other countries and the project that FIP Advisory Committee is working on now.
I think different countries have different regulations and different standards, right? What I've learned so far is not every country has pharmacy technicians. And in order for you to be regulated, I think the most important thing is that I think the ministry has to be aware of the amount of risk that pharmacy technicians are taking in terms of patient care, in terms of drug and medication safety. And you have to show that because we're responsible for this, there is a need for regulation. And with regulation, there would be standardization, and that's how you go about doing it, because Singapore is in the midst of getting us regulated. And this is what we're trying to identify, is the amount of risk that pharmacy technicians are in, because we can be back end or we could be at the dispensing counter. And how are we going to regulate us doing this? It really depends on where you're from and the structure that they have in terms of the framework for pharmacy support workforce. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Abigail. And I'd like to just mention the project that the Pharmacy Technician Advisory Committee is working on right now is developing a competency framework for the pharmacy support workforce. And this will entail just the competencies that are required for a pharmacy technician. And we're hoping to, we're just in the beginning stages, we are certainly hoping to sort of define different levels of pharmacy technician, so that and this will be we'll be working on this for a couple of years, trying to get this put in place, and then it'll be available through FIP. Regulated in our country, in Canada, is a protected title. Pharmacy technician is a protected title, so you certainly have to go through an educational program. You have to be certified by the Pharmacy Examining Board of Canada, and then you would be registered with your regulatory body. Our programs are designed so that you have mobility across the country, and then what you'd have to do is do a licensure exam in each regulatory body. And I don't know, Ryan, if you're still on, if you might have some comment about the United States. Oh, Ryan's not there right now, but that's, oh, there he is.
Sorry, I had a bit of a
Okay.
delay there. So, Kathy, is your question related to the regulation requirements?
The status
Yeah.
of regulation, yeah.
So it varies widely by state. So if you see one state, you see one state. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of consistency in the US as it relates to regulations around pharmacy technician practice. We have a couple of states within the country that actually do not register pharmacy technicians at all. However, there are a number of states that have more stringent requirements, such as completing an accredited training program, passing a standardized exam, which is what we do at PTCB, as well as requirements around continuing education and maintaining competence. For immunizations in particular, we have about half of the states that now allow pharmacy technicians to administer immunizations, and there are often specific training requirements for that. So that might be one area where we see a little bit more consistency in terms of the requirements, but for the most part, there's a lot of variation throughout the US.
Great, thanks, Ryan, for popping in there. I have another question for Abigail. And how can a pharmacy technician in Singapore provide feedback to the ministry?
If you're a pharmacy technician in the public sector, so any of our public health institutions, hospitals, polyclinics and things like that, there is a representative that you can approach. Different representatives are getting feedback differently. So within my institution at KK Hospital, I have a permanent Google form open for them to submit, and I check it periodically to check if there are any new feedbacks coming in, and if it could be resolved within the institution, or if it's something that I have to bring up to ministry. So if you're with a public health institution, you could approach them. If you're not, and if you're comfortable approaching me, I'll be more than happy to take this feedback to ministry. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dana, I have a question for you. As being part of the regulatory body and your role at council, did you find that it was very difficult? And I know you alluded to a little bit about, was it difficult for you to bring new items forward, or were you listened to? Was it, were people excited to hear what was happening with pharmacy technicians in your province? Or
Thanks for the question, Kathy. I would say it mostly resided in myself. I would say that at the council table, you are welcome to speak and share ideas and bring items forward, all of those kinds of things. And so I did do that, but as a pharmacy technician, especially early days, I was more reserved than I learned to be over the course of the 6 years. And so it was really more about how I was leading myself than it was around the acceptance of a pharmacy technician speaking up at council, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Great, thank you. And I have one last question. Are there any unified duration times for pharmacy technician programs? There is not. And, like I said, pharmacy technician, it just brings many titles to many different countries. I myself have been a pharmacy assistant, a pharmacy clerk, a pharmacy technician. I've been the girl. So we just have so many different types of programs across the globally. There are university programs for some pharmacy technicians. There are 1 year, 2 years, 3-year programs for pharmacy technicians. It just depends what country you're in, and sometimes what province, and as Ryan alluded to, what state you could be in. It just, like I'm hoping this competency framework that we're developing for FIP will sort of give us some guidance and some clearance on the role of a pharmacy technician, or the pharmacy support workforce. I don't see any more questions here, and I'm just so excited about this presentation, because it's really opened a lot of doors, a lot of eyes to what's happening in the countries that we're seeing here. We've heard many new and exciting opportunities today from the pharmacy support workforce. Our role as pharmacy technicians is ever changing as the role of pharmacists advances. And I ask you to embrace your role, take up new challenges, be an integral part of your healthcare team. We encourage you to become a member of FIP Pharmacy Technician Advisory Committee, and you will see the website we talked about, and I'll give it to you again in a few minutes. And I would sincerely like to thank our panelists, Dana, Abigail, and Ryan, for their presentations today. They're just so much information of what the work that's going on around the world. As a reminder, the recording for this session is made available at www.fip.org. You will receive our participation certificate by email, and please give us your feedback at webinars@fip.org, so we may continue to improve our digital events offerings. And thank you so much for joining us today. Have a good day, everybody.